our webinar. This webinar will be 60 minutes in length with time for questions. Audio is through your telephone or computer microphone and speakers. And we will be muting the webinar phone line during the presentation. Because we are recording this entire broadcast, we will be posting the broadcast on our website, both the PDF of the slides that you will see today, as well as the recording itself, that you'll be able to listen to it. But you can still participate even though your line is muted. You can type in questions throughout the webinar in the dialog box that's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you see a little orange box with a white arrow, if you click on it and open it, you'll see it opens a dialog box where you can type in a question at any time through the webinar. As questions occur to you, please feel free to type them in. We will take the questions at the end of the two presentations, and at that point we will open it up for comments and question and answer period. So this particular series is a brand new showcase that we are launching at the Alliance for Water Efficiency. We want to feature the innovative products that are available from our member businesses that focus specifically on innovations in efficiency. So this is a new educational webinar series that we're designing for water professionals who are working in the water conservation and water efficiency world. The objective of this showcase is to share the kinds of efficiency-related projects and content that would help you and your community stay ahead of the curve and to stay in touch with what the latest developments are. We want to feature innovative and emerging technologies and services. We want to show new approaches to solving efficiency-related challenges. And we want to present to you case studies where these concepts have been successfully applied and have solved problems in water conservation and water efficiency in various communities. All of our AWE business and industry members would be eligible to participate. We will have themed showcases on various topics, and this is our first one that we are launching. We'll have more of them coming in 2015. So this particular webinar is going to look at the topic of consumer education strategies and how we can develop new ways to influence customer behavior with scientific findings on how people learn and what the new technologies are that enable water utilities to communicate more and more often to customers with more consistent messaging that can influence that behavior. We're finding that businesses are beginning to merge scientific findings and technology to help customers modify the behavior and become wiser water users both at home and in the classroom. We're finding that students and teachers are finding this particularly useful in creating messages for students to take home to their families. So what we want to do in this webinar is look at how these programs are activated and what the impact is on water use and what the customer understanding is in local communities. So we have brought together a great field of speakers for you. I'm Mary Ann Dickinson, President and CEO of the Alliance for Water Efficiency. I'm the moderator today of your webinar. And we have with us today Dominique Gomez, who's the Director of Market Development for WaterSmart Software, and Lacey Lutz, who's the Utility Representative at the City of Palo Alto in California. We also have McGee Young, who is the founder of MeterHero, and Steve Dykema, Director of Development for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Milwaukee. So we'll hear from two great case studies on this issue. And we'll start with our first one, Lessons for Water Managers from Behavioral Science. And I'd like to introduce to you Dominique Gomez and Lacey Lutz, who will talk with you about their project.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. This is Dominique Gomez from WaterSmart Software. And first of all, I want to thank you so much, Marianne, for inviting us on and for everything that the Alliance is doing to educate its users about these new and exciting technologies. We're really excited to see the webinar series over the next year. So I'm going to start off a little bit and talk about some of the new things that we really think are coming from the the behavioral science field that water managers can really use in how they interact with their customers. And then we have the great pleasure today to have one of our customers, one of the cities that we work with, the city of Palo Alto. Lacey, Lutz will be joining us and talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing and how they've been able to benefit from behavioral science there in Palo Alto. So to get started, here we have one question. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So a lot of water managers are thinking about how they can really encourage their communities to conserve. And people have busy lives. So you see here a mother is helping her daughter wash her hands. You know, people have jobs, they have families. Water is not always top of mind. And they don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about water and how to conserve water, whether or not they need to. Next slide, please. And I would say that most people only really think about water when they get their bill. And I want to posit that I don't think the water bill is the best way to get people to conserve or the best way to get their attention. And that really comes for a few reasons. So one is most water bills communicate about a water in a way that most people don't really understand. So you'll see here that this water bill has a usage of 4. So it's in 1,000-gallon increments, but it really just says 4. And most people don't know what that means. People know what a gallon is, but if it's in 1,000-gallon increments or if they're billed in CCF, they're really not able to understand how much water they're using. The other issue is you'll see there at the bottom of the bill that this bill is for about $32. And most water bills, while water costs are definitely rising, and some cities have higher water costs for sure, most people are still paying a lot more for things like their cell phone bill than they are their water bill. So you'll see there on the right, the monthly statement for AT&T is about $145. So between not really understanding what the water bill is communicating and it just not being a big enough economic issue for them, most people are not spending a lot of time. And this is really not the best way to get people to be interested in water and water conservation. So it brings us back to the question. So next slide, please. How do we find something that is compelling? We need to not only get the attention of the individual citizens and of the households and everyone there, but we also need to make sure that they have the right information they need to act. Next slide. So I want to talk about a few different things from behavioral science that we think are really compelling. And the first is social norms. So the idea here is that group behavior is really powerful. And there was some research done starting in the 50s by a professor at WaterSmart College. His name was Solomon Asch, and he was a social psychologist, and he found that what other people do, peer pressure, has a huge impact on individuals. And it can do more than even individuals would expect in terms of forming their opinions and forming their behavior. Many years later, Candid Camera, which was kind of a funny show in the 60s, did a little bit of a play on this. And what they did is they had people go into an elevator. And these are actors for Candid Camera. And most people know when you go into an elevator, you face the front. Usually you're getting out of the same door that you're coming in. The numbers are at the front, and that's just sort of the expected behavior. It's rational. It's what everyone does. Well, they had this poor unsuspecting guy. There he goes. He comes in, and he does what he normally does. You know, he comes in and he faces the front. But you'll notice these actors that are with Candid Camera, you know, they're facing the back. And there's a few of them, and they're all doing the same thing, which is a little bit different than what he's doing. And you'll see that, sure enough, eventually he conforms. He starts to turn around. And many of you probably are familiar with Candid Camera, if not the one from the 60s and the more recent version in the 90s. So they had this again and again. And you'll see it happen again and again. This group behavior is very powerful. It affects what people do again and again. Next slide. The great thing is that we can use these social norms in really positive ways, and there's a few different examples from different parts of sectors. So one at the top that I want to point out I think is really important. So there's this idea among many college students that drinking and going out and getting drunk is quite common, that a lot of people do it. And it's a very visible behavior for sure. If you're on a college campus, people who are being loud and drunk and wandering around are very visible, whereas the people who are having more quiet nights, you know, inside with their friends, they're not very visible at all. You might think that the norm is to go outside and drink a lot. So one important thing is to actually educate people that that's not the case. And so this is an example that shows that most students drink moderately, and you'll see a few different examples of different college campuses who are using this. So the idea is to pull attention of those students to the social norm. The social norm is actually not to go out and have too many drinks. The social norm is to drink moderately. And just having that information actually does change behavior. There on the left-hand side, you'll also see something that was used very widely in the 2012 election and got a little bit of press. This is a voter report card. So the idea is we often want people to vote. We think that's a good thing. And how do we make sure that they are voting? Well, one thing is to let them know about the social norm in their neighborhood. So if we let them know how often they voted in the last couple elections, because that is public information, not who they voted for, but that they voted, we can let them know how they're comparing to the social norm, and especially try and really encourage people who haven't voted to vote more frequently. And then there on the right-hand side, one other piece of information. This was used quite commonly in hotel rooms. You've probably noticed in the last 10 years, a lot of hotels now say, please hang up your towels if you don't want us to have them be washed. This is a great way to save water and energy. Well, one thing that some hotels have done, and this was an interesting study, is they've actually found that if you give information on the social norm about doing this, and even more specific information about the social norm doing this in this hotel, or even in this hotel room, that most people hang up their towels, or most people who stayed in this room hung up their towels, that information gets more and more powerful, and the person who is staying in that room is more and more likely to conform and actually hang up their towel. So this can be used in many good ways. And social norms are very powerful. Next slide, please. Okay, I want to talk really quickly about a few other behavioral insights, and then I'll launch into a little bit of information on how we use this to communicate about water efficiency. So these are from a team in the UK called the Behavioural Insights team, and they've come up with this kind of shorthand for a few key ways to make information really compelling and able to change behavior. And they use the acronym EAST. And what that stands for is easy, attractive, social, and timely. And I'll go through these one by one with some examples. So the first thing is easy. So what that means is that you want any behavior that you desire from an individual to be something that's very easy for them to do. So for instance, if you're in a lunch line and you want people to be able to pick the most healthy food, you want to make it really easy for them to do so. So there's a few things. One, the healthy food should be at the front. It should be something that's easy for them to grab. It shouldn't be hard for them to get. And you also want to put it before all the junk food. So there's been lots of studies, it's not surprising, if you put healthy food at the front, people are more likely to take it. They're less likely to fill up with junk food and get to the healthy food at the end, and there's not any room on their plates for it at that point. So any sort of things you can do in terms of making things the default, in terms of making forms very simple, in terms of opt-ins versus opt-outs, anything you can do to make something easy is more likely to increase the number of people who are actually able to do it. The next thing that the Behavioral Insights team found is attractive. So I'm going to go back here to the water bill compared to the different things that you receive in the mail. This is an ad from Verizon that I got in the mail. And attractive is just all those things that advertising has been telling us for many years. You want things easy to read, you want colors, you want pictures. It does make a difference. And so if you are sending out a mailer or some sort of information to your community, you want to take those few steps to make something more colorful and more attractive. It's not rocket science, but it is funny how often we forget and what a big difference it makes. The next thing is that social norms that we've been talking to. So again, the extent to which you can reference what the social norm is, what other group members and other community members do as a argument for what you want an individual to do, that actually is really powerful. And I bring back this example of the drinking because I think it's also really important to remember what's visible versus what is the norm. Often people will be mistaken about what the norm is. If one thing is a very visible action, even if it's in the minority, and something that is more frequently, the more frequent action is not as visible. So again, you want to draw attention to what is the more frequent action and what is sort of the accepted behavior among the community. And then lastly, timely. So it is really important to do and send the right messages at the right time when someone is going to be open to acting on it and able to act on it. So this is just an example. A few years ago, I sent my mother some flowers through an online service for her birthday. And now this online service sends me a very helpful reminder about 3 days before her birthday every year. So it's not too difficult for them to do that, and it's very effective because it's very timely. I'm not likely to send her flowers some other time of the year, although maybe I should. I might be a better daughter. But because it's the right time for me to be able to buy those flowers, it's very effective. And sometimes this means you have to think creatively. So you need to think about when someone is going to be open to making a change. So there's some key points in the water cycle for most people. There's the time of year when they turn on and off their irrigation sprinkler. There might be a time when they're doing renovations. If you can think about when someone is going to be particularly susceptible to a new message, then you can make your action and your call to action more timely, and that's going to be much more effective. So again, from the Behavioral Insights team in the UK, East, just remember, you want to make something easy, attractive, social, and timely. These are some good ideas. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about how we use those insights here at WaterSmart. And one thing that you'll see is when we communicate on behalf of the cities that we work with, we have these communications that we send to their communities. We make sure to use some of these insights. So this is a communication about water use that is sent to an individual, and they will receive one of these 3 types of messages. And you'll see it uses a few different pieces. So one, it's easy. What we want to do is make the information really easy for them to read. And it's not shown here, but in a few slides I'll show you, we give them really specific actions that they can actually take to save water based on what we know about them. It's also attractive. Compared to a lot of the communications that they receive that are black or white, just black and white, this is colorful, it's, there's images, it's kind of fun, so that just helps draw in their attention and keep it there. It's also social. So you see here that we're showing people not just how much water they're using in an easy-to-understand gallons per day, but also how it compares to similar neighbors. And that social norm really does change behavior, especially that one there on the right where we let people know that they've used more water than their neighbors. People actually react to that, and they often want to know how and why, and they want to change and be more within line with the rest of their community. And then it's timely. So we're making sure to send the right information at the right time to help people take action. So for instance, if we know that we're coming on to a watering season, it's in the spring, we want to send information about how they can save money during the watering season. Or if we know that they're going to be turning off their irrigation controller, it's in the fall, we want to make sure that we're telling them at the right time to do that and what information they need to know over the winter. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a little bit about how WaterSmart works before I introduce Lacey from the city of Palo Alto. So what we do is we take information both from the communities that we work with, so meter data, and we take any information in terms of rebates or citations that they might give on water waste, and we pair that with outside information including surveys, real estate data, and weather and climate data to really paint a profile of each household and be able to send them those right messages at the right time. Next slide, please. And what we find is just by sending people these compelling messages using some of these insights from behavioral science is there's actually a large impact on water use. So we typically see about 5% savings for those who receive the messages compared to those who don't, which is actually quite a big difference for many communities. And we see that those customers who receive these messages that use behavioral science are more engaged than those who don't. So they're more likely to participate in existing programs, they're more likely to attend classes, they're more likely to seek and get rebates, etc. So they're more engaged with their water utility, and we know that leads to higher customer satisfaction. Next slide, please. The other thing we find is that these social norms and other behavioral insights are very broadly interesting to people. So about 70% of homes that we send these communications to overall reduce water use in a statistically significant way, in a way we can actually measure. And you'll see that the highest users, people over there on the right-hand side, people who use quite a bit of water, they reduce quite a bit more than 5% on average. And it makes sense. They have a lot of room to conserve. They're often doing things that are fairly easy to change and save quite a bit. And they're often surprised. When you give people that valuable and compelling information, like you use more water than most of your neighbors, they are interested and they are motivated to make a change. Next slide, please. And then lastly, we know that customer satisfaction is important. The Alliance has done a great job on educating us all about all the need for water infrastructure investments over the next coming decades. And we know that engaging our consumers is going to be one important step that we take in making those investments. And so customer satisfaction is actually really important. And what we found is that compared to those who don't receive these kinds of communications, households who do are more likely to rate their utility as excellent, and some key parameters including providing tips on how to reduce water use, showing ways to save money, and explaining how much water was used and how it was used. Next slide, please. All right. Now I have the great pleasure of introducing Lacey Lutz. Lacey is with the City of Palo Alto, who we've been partnering with for quite a bit now, and she's going to talk a little bit about the program and what they've been able to learn from working with WaterSmart.
Thank you so much, Dominique. So this is Lacey from the City of Palo Alto Utilities, and I am a program manager for our water, gas, and electric residential efficiency programs. We are a unique utility that does offer all three services among about 4 others. So we are able to market to our customers all of our programs in one, and so sometimes we choose to offer programs that are focused in just one area, and our home water reports are one of those programs. So when we first started this program, we were able to go into cost sharing on it with our local Santa Clara Valley Water District and offer the reports to about 12,000 of our single-family residential households that receive water. And our goal was to increase our customer awareness and engagement, our program participation, and to help us figure out what our customers actually want. And the program participation part was very important because we do offer a lot of other residential water efficiency programs, and we'll go over those in a little bit. So next slide, please. So for the home water reports, as Dominique was outlining earlier, the content that we have on them basically goes through what the resident has consumed, their seasonal water use. If we see in the consumption trends that they have a really high use during the summer and low use during the winter, then we generally know that that's because of their irrigation, and so we can kind of pinpoint to each individual customer what their water use is. Right now, because California, as you know, is in drought, we are in a unique situation because we are within Santa Clara County, so we do fall under the Santa Clara Valley Water District drought messaging, but we receive our water from the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, so technically we are under San Francisco's, the SFPUC specific conservation requirements. So we had to be very careful about our messaging to make sure that we weren't contradicting either of the agencies and that we were following the regulation that we needed to. So far to date, Palo Alto has had about a 15% residential decrease in water consumption, which is great. Next slide, please. So I would just like to start by talking about our customer interaction. Palo Alto is a small community in Northern California, and we are in the center of Silicon Valley, so a lot of our customers are affiliated with a lot of the big tech companies, and we also have Stanford University. The type of residents that we tend to have here, we have about 25,000 households, and the type of residents that we have here are very, very involved in every possible green anything that we could ever offer them, which is fantastic. People are very proud of their green image, very environmentally conscious, and definitely interested in doing as much as they possibly can to help with water conservation for the drought and just in general be green. The timing of when we started this program about a year ago was really critical because we are having a lot of campaigns because of the drought from the state and the county. And I think everyone was seeing all of this drought messaging from other places that was not the utility. And then when we started sending out these reports, everyone was completely shocked because they thought, oh, well, we've been seeing the drought messaging, we've been conserving, we're so great, we're so green. And then they saw the report and they saw how many gallons a day they were using, and it was just a complete shock to them. And a lot of people didn't believe it at first because, as Dominique had outlined earlier, our billing is shown in CCF, which is like 750 gallons at a time. And so to a resident, that's not very, they can't visualize that like you can a gallon of milk. So the first report that went out, we had extremely high response, a very high call volume, and we have high open rates. And since starting these reports, we've seen the highest participation rates in all of our other programs than we have ever seen in the past. Next slide, please. One of the really fantastic things that we have found from these reports are the analytics that it allows us to run. So we can, it will call out for us the behavioral patterns of the residents, and we can actually walk them through it, have them log into the portal, and say, hey, look, you have really high summer usage, really low winter usage, so your baseline is low. This is clearly irrigation unless you just happen to be taking 40 extra showers a day during the summer, which is highly unlikely. And usually that will get the customer to actually pay attention and say, oh, wow, I never realized that. I only run my irrigation for 10 minutes a day, all 7 days out of the week. And it's like, well, maybe you could reduce that, or you can participate in our other programs where we can pay you to switch out your irrigation equipment. So it's been a very strong tool for us to actually engage the residents. And then on the back side of it for us specifically, having the analytical tools has helped a lot because we have given all of our participation records from all of our other unaffiliated water conservation programs to WaterSmart, and they have uploaded that data. And so there's the customer's account number and their name and address, and then say in June of 2013 they replaced their toilet with a toilet upgrade program, and we can actually see, oh, their water use went down, and it went down by this %, or it went up and the program was ineffective. So we can run analytics on all of our programs like we've never been able to do in the past. The high efficiency toilet, clothes washers, landscaping, irrigation equipment, and now we have a gray water rebate. Next slide, please. Some really big opportunities that we found. We started to run a little side pilot program on advanced metering so we could get the hourly interval data for our customers for water. And it's been very, very positive response that we've had. We've been able to increase our leak detection power, and being able to actually show a resident a bar graph saying, hey, you know, you've got, I can see here when you turned your irrigation on. I can see when you took a shower. It gets a little bit creepy sometimes. We're not Big Brother, but we can see all of these things. And then, oh, by the way, starting yesterday, every single hour for the last 36 hours, we've seen 7 gallons per hour leaking. And we can actually show them the chart, and then they actually believe you that, yes, they do have a leak, which on the normal monthly billing, we would never be able to pinpoint something like that for them. So it's definitely been a really strong, strong tool that we can use. The last thing is just the segmenting the marketing campaigns. Being able to send out marketing campaigns and have the data aggregated for us of who we're supposed to be sending them out to say, you know, catchy lines like, hey, I know what you did last summer, and it's, oh, you turned on your irrigation way too much, so try better this time. And it allows us to basically target our campaigns to certain people based on their consumption patterns and based on how they're interacting with the tool and based on what other programs that they've participated in. And then it definitely saves us a lot of money because we focus it on the people that it would actually make a difference for them. So for us, hopefully we will be able to get the whole city on the hourly, the advanced meters, and at that point it would definitely all pull together as a really strong full circle tool where the behavioral science from their side and then our side from the analytics would all work out really well together. So I would just say that overall we definitely have had a really successful program, and the best point of advice that I can give to anybody trying to run a behavioral science program, we did this exact, almost very similar program with our gas and electric as well. And our council was very interested in being able to offer the program to every single person. So about 5 years ago, we decided to do away with our control group on the gas and electric side and give everyone the reports. And then we realized, oh wait, now we can't do any analytics to see how well it's working. So this time when we launched the water one, we are definitely keeping our control group, and I think overall that would be one of the most important points of making these programs work. Dominique, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, thank you so much. So I think that's it, and we look forward to hearing the next panel and then hearing questions. Yeah, back to you, Marianne.
Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. I think at this point now we're going to move to our second presenters from Meter Hero, who are going to talk about educating efficiency and the role of STEM. And I'd like to introduce to you McGee Young and Steve Dykema, who will give the presentation.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Steve Dykema from the Boys and Girls Club. McGee Young and I are very excited to be part of the inaugural webinar this afternoon. And I first wanted to pass along a congratulations to Dominique and Lacey for an extremely insightful presentation. I know that I learned a lot from that. So thank you very much. And so probably the first question that comes to top of mind when you see the opening slide about educating efficiency and the role of STEM is how does an after-school program provider fit into educating students regarding water efficiency? And as we were looking to kick off a new pilot program around STEM education, we thought after a lot of investigation that this was the perfect fit for our members to be able to learn from. And there's three key reasons driving our thought process around the partnership with STEMhero and Meter Hero and why it was the perfect fit. It gave us the ability to use technology to collect data and then to be able to use those measurements as part of a data-driven decision that really is part of every single STEM job out in the market. Number two, we realized quickly that being able to leverage technology that was universally available to our students and to our club members in order to reach a large portion of our club members and to make this program to scale, especially our members from low-income households that were minorities and even the female club member base that is grossly underrepresented in STEM careers. And then thirdly, we realized that all of our club members, even those that were living in apartment buildings, have access to at least one water, gas, or electric meter, whether it be at their home, at their local business where they intern, at their school, and at their Boys and Girls Clubs where they go in the afternoon. So let me touch a little bit on a little bit more about the clubs, and if you could jump to the next slide, please. So the mission of the Boys and Girls Clubs is to inspire and empower all young people, especially those that need us most, to realize their full potential as productive, responsible, and caring citizens. And to us, that mission means having a safe place for our youth to learn in those critical hours after school from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and being able to provide them programs that are beneficial, that provide educational support that they can learn from. So a little overview of the Boys and Girls Clubs and the different program areas that we offer are divided into what we call academics and then co-curricular. So there's 3 key areas under our academics, under the umbrellas of health and life skills, character and leadership development, and education and career development. And then our co-curricular areas are arts programming, sports, fitness, and recreation, and then environmental education. So you can see where STEMhero and MeterHero are great fits in our environmental education as well as our education and career development areas. Our membership base, which we have just shy of 42,000 members, primarily in the city of Milwaukee, come from backgrounds where 90% of our club members are minorities, 85% come from low-income households, and we have a partnership with the Milwaukee Public School System where the majority of our 43 locations throughout the city of Milwaukee are housed. So we share space with public schools in the city of Milwaukee to offer our programs. So how does STEMhero fit in with the overarching goals of the clubs and the student population that we serve? We felt that this helped us bring an increasing focus on water in the community, and I'm sure that McGee Young is going to cover that in a broader perspective during his part of the presentation. We also felt that it was pertinent to help us close the STEM gap, both educationally and career-wise, and by partnering with key community partners like MeterHero to bring this programming to our kids. Our club members also have told us loud and clear that they have interest in programming that is hands-on, technology-driven, relevant, and accessible to both their time at the clubs as well as their family time at home. The STEM pilot that I talked about earlier had 4 main components to it. There was an online learning tool for mathematics. There was a computer science programming module that we offered as part of that. We also had an experiential learning opportunity with field trips to a local museum called Discovery World, which just happens to be located right on Lake Michigan and offers up a wide array of water efficiency type programs right on site there that our kids participated in. And then finally, the piece with STEMhero and MeterHero. The last slide that I'm going to cover is you'll see the demographics of some of our club members at our Davis Club, which is our largest club in the city of Milwaukee with almost 4,000 members. And I wanted to offer up a couple of key observations that our kids experienced from the programming specific to STEMhero. It gave our kids an opportunity to learn how to read utility meters that really helped to spur on an interest in energy conservation. And it also gave us an opportunity to speak to our kids about the skills that would need to be developed in preparation for a career in STEM. And one of the more interesting facets of this was the passion for learning that this kicked in with our club members and the excitement that they were able to take the knowledge that they learned in the club in the after-school setting home to explore reading water, gas, electric meters at their homes and how they were able to take the learning home to share that with their families. Hope that offers up a little bit of an overview of what this programming has meant to the clubs since we kicked off the pilot back in September. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to McGee Young.
Wonderful. Thanks, Steve. I want to just take a step back here for a second. And many of you may not be very familiar with the STEMhero program or MeterHero. So let me give a little bit of context. So so my background is in academia, actually, as a professor of political science at Marquette University. And I've been there for about 10 years. About 3 years ago, in an environmental politics class, a group of students and I started thinking about how we could solve issues related to the water crisis. And we sort of landed on an idea that would take utility data and make it more accessible for folks who are trying to understand it, much in the way that WaterSmart Software does. We had never heard of WaterSmart Software or even really O-Power at that time, so we made kind of a key sort of strategic blunder that ended up opening up a very different way of looking at this problem. So rather than trying to provide a dashboard that would be used by a water utility, we provided a dashboard that would be used by the general public using water utility data. It was called H2O score, so you would get a similar a water score that was relevant to your own house. What we discovered though in that process was that, so for example, we had a relationship with the city of Milwaukee, and so all of Milwaukee could log into an account on H2O score to see their water utility information. But if you lived in one of the suburban communities around Milwaukee, you weren't able to do so. And if you lived elsewhere in the country and wanted to utilize that technology, you couldn't do so. It was city specific. And this actually created a huge challenge for us as we tried to start working with schools. The importance of STEM and understanding water for schools can't be underscored enough. This is being driven across the country, and in part by the relevance of the water crisis, in part by new curricular standards that are being implemented in most states, requiring students to go out and participate in project-based learning and not just learn from a textbook anymore. But if you're going to work with a school, when you provide their students access to technology and to information, it has to be available to all students. And that's great if you have a neighborhood school that is comprised of all single-family homes, but there are very few schools like that in the country. So a lot of kids live in apartment buildings where they don't have a water account. Their family doesn't get a water bill, or they live in a neighboring community and they participate in a program that allows them to attend a different school than their home school, and so they might not have access to this data. And we know that in order to really make dramatic changes, we are going to have to engage our kids. And so we sort of took a step back and rethought our approach, and out of that process, which took place at the Global Water Center. So we were so Milwaukee Water Council has a technology accelerator program that we got to be part of the first class, and last year we sort of rebooted H2O score to MeterHero with the kind of fundamental premise that we wanted to make it accessible to anybody using any meter anywhere in the world to track their water or energy data. In the short run, that meant that we were able to develop programs that were much more relevant to educational institutions. So next slide. So this is the problem that we wanted to solve with education. We know that there's a talent gap with respect to STEM careers. So minorities and women are a minuscule part of that they constitute a small portion of those going into STEM careers, and this starts to happen in particular in middle school, where girls become, for a variety of reasons, sort of demotivated to pursue math and science. And so if we could use water conservation as a way to engage students in STEM careers better than traditional approaches, we feel like we're solving our mission to a much greater extent. At Marquette University, this is an important part of what we do as a university is try to address challenges that are relevant to those who are less fortunate. So next slide. So this is how MeterHero works. Is that we target elementary and middle school students, although some high school students are participating as well. And we provide the students with a personal dashboard where they can actually go find a meter and identify the reading on the meter and log it into their dashboard. And they log that over a number of different readings, and they start to see, and we do the math on the back end for them, but it tells them their average gallons per day, for example. Their teacher can set up an account for the students and for the classes, or for the class as a whole. So each student has their own personal private account, but the teacher can monitor all of the students' progress and activity and make sure that they're understanding their assignments correctly. There's additional functionality that allows students to share their meter with their family members, so they can bring these lessons home to them. We've talked to a number of students who've been really excited to go home and teach their parents how they can save money on their water bill through simple types of things that they've learned by participating in the program. Now, one other point that's worth mentioning is that there are sort of two names here. There's MeterHero and STEMhero. So MeterHero is the broader platform that we use for a variety of different purposes, including offering conservation rebates. STEMhero is the particular educational program, and the gentleman that you see in the picture there was actually an instrumental part of our H2O score project and is a teacher himself. So he's developed a curriculum for teachers to implement STEMhero in their classrooms, and we've got some wonderful pilots with the Boys and Girls Club, as well as with schools in the Chicago and Milwaukee area, after having just launched it this summer. So next slide. In addition to the online portal for the students, the STEMhero curriculum includes some wonderful packages of information that we actually make available to anybody. So you can go on to the STEMhero website, STEMhero.com, download the curriculum, download the tips and information. We don't want to restrict this information, but we are there for you if you want additional help or additional support in implementing this in your class. What's important is that all of this curriculum now helps teachers meet the new Common Core standards and the next generation science standards, so that they can be confident that the work that they're doing with their students meets the expectations of their principal and their school board. What we found that the kids like most is being able to use their iPads and their phones to do this work. This is meeting the kids where they are, not in a textbook, but with texting, and that's been really exciting to see them kind of gravitate towards that. Next slide. So that's sort of the long and short of it. We'd love to follow up with any of you who have more questions. I appreciate Mary Ann giving us the opportunity to participate. It's wonderful to be sharing a webinar with WaterSmart Software, and thanks to Steve and the Boys and Girls Club for participating with us.
Thank you very much, McGee and Stephen. We really appreciate it. And so you've heard two great presentations now, and I know you've probably got some questions. If you haven't already typed them in, please do so in the chat box. As I mentioned earlier in the webinar, a PDF of this entire presentation, as well as the recorded webinar, will be posted online. We have a webinars page in our resource library, and this is the link for it, so look for it in a day or two. And we'd like you also to learn more about our showcase companies and other special offers for AWN members at our website. And we want you to have a continuing dialogue. We'll have other issues that we will present in this showcase to you as we go forward. So we appreciate you having been part of this. So at this point, I'd like to ask Jeffrey to start with the questions that we have received.
Thanks, Mary Ann. We do have a number of questions, all of them at this moment relating to the first showcase with Dominique and Lacey. So I'm just going to jump in, the first being for Dominique and about WaterSmart Software specific. So Dominique, first question, what sort of real estate data do you use? Home values, recent sales, etc.?
Sure, that's a great question. So the real estate information we typically use comes from the county assessor's office, and the information includes things like the size of the lot, on which a home is built, which is really important because that, coupled with the size of the home itself, gives us some information about the likely irrigable area of each home. So how big the lawn is that they're probably watering, which, as we know, outdoor water use is a big part of many communities' total municipal water use. So it tells us things like that. It also will tell us the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. It helps us estimate the number of fixtures, like how many toilets and faucets might be in a home, as well as how many people likely live there. It also tells us the age of the house when a house was built. So if we know that a home was built in the 2000s, for instance, we know they probably have pretty updated fixtures. But if it was built in the 70s, there might be a possibility that they have some old kind of inefficient toilets and things like that. So we don't usually get much on, not as much on the value of the home, but a little bit more on just when it was built and the size. Great
wonderful.
question.
Thank you. Next question for you, Dominique, is WaterSmart able to do customer reporting without AMI, AMR systems? Or another way to put that is, does a water purveyor have to have AMI to successfully utilize the WaterSmart software?
Another great question. So no. So we actually work with, I think we have 31 cities we work with now, and only a handful of them have implemented advanced meter infrastructure. So most of the cities we work with, including Palo Alto, mostly have AMR or even manual data, so they actually do rolling reads. We are able to do a few new things when you have the more frequent reads, but in Palo Alto, and Lacey can speak to this, they actually are just doing a pilot, and we find many of the cities are doing that they have maybe monthly or bi-monthly reads through AMR, and they're investigating AMI, but it's quite an investment, and so most of the analytics that we do are actually not using AMI data.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Dominique, is there an average cost per customer to implement WaterSmart software?
It's a good question. It depends a little bit on what sort of features we're doing and what sort of work we're doing. So each of our implementations is a little bit different, but I'd be happy to provide more information to any cities that are wondering. They can. I think my contact information is in the PDF. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. The next number of questions is directly mostly toward Lacey, but Dominique, you might have input on this. So first one being, what billing units does Palo Alto use, and what is your billing frequency?
Absolutely. So this is Lacey. So in Palo Alto, we use CCF, and I think it's exactly, 748 gallons per CCF. And that's actually what shows up on the bill. So if somebody uses 3 CCFs and 300 gallons, it'll just show up as 3 CCF, and then the next month we will catch up for the remainder. So when someone goes from 1 to 2, it makes it look like they had doubled their water use, and that's not very, it's not at all granular for them, and it's really difficult for people to do that. So in implementing this program, is the first time we've ever been able to really show our customers in gallons, and especially gallons per day, based on how many days are in the billing cycle. We do still have meter readers, and we do everything completely manually, except for maybe we have about 300 people on a pilot program. And so for the people who are on the pilot program, they're still getting the same billing in CCF, but the only difference is that they're able to log into the portal and see it gets as granular as 7.48 gallons per hour. So we can we can see when somebody takes a shower or when they get up. We can see when they turn the irrigation on, because it's a much larger amount. And generally, we can kind of tell if someone flushed the toilet and maybe washed their hands. That's like about as granular as it gets. So they definitely have a lot more opportunities to really get done and see their usage and find leaks and things like that with the hourly interval data. But even without it, for the other, what do we have on this program, 12,000 people that are receiving these reports, they've still been, the rest of them are only on the monthly billing, and they get their reports once a quarter in the mail, or they can log in and see their monthly portal, and that's just in CCF, which we translate to gallons per day for them.
Thanks, Lacey. Regarding that data that's tracked and the detail that you're provided, are those insights you put into reports, or is that something that you typically only use when customers engage you directly? And have you gotten any or much negative feedback on privacy accounts?
So to answer the first question about the insights, all of the customers are given insights on all of the reports. So there may be specialized tips, maybe I think 3 per report, specialized tips for them. And so if I have on record that somebody participated in the toilet rebate program, then we won't advertise that same program to them. We'll focus on something different. So all customers, it's not an opt-in program. It is a we force you to do this and you can opt out if you really want to program. So they're all receiving these with the tips and insights for them. And then what was the second question?
Have you gotten any or much negative feedback on the privacy accounts?
Not so much. I mean, I know we are in the middle of Silicon Valley, so it's a little bit of a different environment than it might be in other places, but we have not gotten negative feedback on privacy. I think we've had a super tiny amount. I think maybe 30 people that have opted out of 12,000. So most people are pretty happy with it. A lot of them don't believe it because, 200 gallons a day just seems completely outrageous. So, but they're intrigued by it. Whereas with the energy ones, there was a lot more negative feedback and people not believing it, but instead of being intrigued by it, they would just say, oh, well, we're just going to ignore this. So water was a completely different situation. I think that might have a lot to do with the drought messaging from the rest of the state. But Dominique can speak to other programs. I'm sure you've had experience with other cities aside from Palo Alto.
Yeah, no, I think that that's about right. I think that, some people, of course, don't like this sort of information, but it's a really small minority, and most people are really grateful to their utility for providing them this extra information.
Great. And thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, as a city, one thing that we have done is because we are a government, we do have available to the public all of our non-disclosure agreements and legal agreements and all of the contracts that we go through with these companies prior to sending them any data from our residents. And there's like a 15-page data security assessment that they have to go through. So there's quite a lot of protections that we have take place, and all of that we make very transparent and open to the public what we're requiring the companies to go through prior to us contracting with them.
Wonderful, thanks. So a question here for you, Lacey, as well, is if someone disputes their household or landscape size, can that be adjusted on a parcel-by-parcel basis?
Yeah, anybody can go in and they basically can log in and they can say, how many people are in the house, what their square footage is, and if there is anything that they can't change themselves, then they can always call us and we can absolutely go in and change any piece of data that's on there. I mean, if we've never had anyone really, as far as I know in my program, dispute that information, but if they did, I mean, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go correct it, because it's true, our county property parcel data is sometimes very out of date, so we would be open-minded to changing that stuff for them.
Okay, wonderful, thanks. So you might have mentioned, or maybe they're just inquiring about increased customer interactions or calls, and were such interactions anticipated, and how was the increase looked upon by your customer service call center?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So at WaterSmart's recommendation, we sent out the reports in, they're once a quarter, but we send them out in 4 batches each quarter. So that way only a quarter of the recipients are receiving it each week. And that way it spreads out the hit on the call center. And one thing that definitely has changed the environment and the way that we look at the call center duties is that prior to this type of program causing a lot of phone calls, it was always, they're being judged on exactly how many minutes down to the second that they can deal with the person's issue and get them off the phone and move on to the next one. And so they're graded on the number of calls that they take during the day. However, when we start running programs like this, people are receiving, the call center is receiving phone calls where the customer really wants to engage and talk about the plant species and go over which irrigation head is better and all these kinds of things that these reports are creating. And so now we're definitely having a social shift within our utility internally, where we have to look at our interaction with our customer in a very different light than we did in the past. And so we are pretty much all but completely dumping the whole minimal minutes per person type of metric and really getting, appreciating that engagement from the resident.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I have a question here for Steve and McGee. Is there an intent to study the increased performance in science and math in kids participating?
Yeah, we're actually doing a pretty significant research project that's a collaboration between Marquette University and University of Chicago Loyola, involving Catholic middle school students in both cities. That'll be a sort of a full look at both kind of general measurements of student learning, but in particular the focus on gender. So there's deep reason to believe that girls are going to perform substantially better when they have this sort of project to work on, and we'll be rolling that out in the spring.
Great, thank you so much. A question again about Palo Alto and their environment. It says here, Palo Alto is a wealthy city in a drought-stricken region, so they have both the means and the urgency to invest in a certain level of customer education. What advice do you have for regions that have less capacity or money, have less of an environmental ethic, and have less obvious urgency for conservation?
That's a good question. Although Palo Alto is, situated with urgency and the financing available to do the programs that we do, we definitely still have, a good percentage of our residents that don't believe in global warming and don't believe in the drought and don't believe that any of this even happens and thinks that, all of it is crazy. And so we have to change our approach with them. They don't like to be, compared to the neighbor. And so we basically found that there's extremely inexpensive marketing in our local free newspapers that are sent out, and they get, if we put a little ad in that newspaper that's really inexpensive, that gets so much more attention than our bill inserts and our TV commercials and our radio ads and all the other things that we can do from that specific section of the population. And so for them, we just had to figure out a different way to go about marketing it. So to them, instead of saying, oh, we're going to compare you to your neighbor and you should save water because of the drought, we really focus it on, hey, if you reduce your water, then your bill will be so much lower. And we completely separate it from the environmental, green, drought, global warming, conservation, whatever, strictly to just money, because money speaks to everybody, and it specifically speaks to certain people that may not be in the same financial situation as the rest of the population.
Thanks, Lacey. Just a follow-up question regarding your programs. Do you get assistance from San Francisco, or is there maybe a regional effort underway, or are all your programs funded by your own rates?
So all of our electric and gas programs, as well as our storm drain, sewer, refuse, and fiber optics, are all funded internally. The only program that we do get outside funding from are the water programs, and we do an exact 50% cost share on those with the Santa Clara Valley Water District. There is another agency from San Francisco that will help with putting on workshops and things like that, but as far as paying half of the contracted rate for these programs, we go into an equal partnership with the Water District.
Thank you. Question for McGee. Are there plans to expand MeterHero beyond the Milwaukee area?
Yeah, actually, I'm out in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area now, and we're working with a number of communities out here. Interestingly, we have pilots with MeterHero in India and most of the different parts of the United States and Canada. So we've really designed it to be kind of universally applicable, and we hope that we can continue to grow the ways in which people use that platform to track and share their water and energy data.
Great, thank you. There are no more questions.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And we appreciate all of you who have hung on with us. We know we're a little bit over time, but we appreciate the fact that we had a very good discussion. There's lots of great questions that were asked. So thank you once again for attending this webinar. Thanks to our great speakers, Dominique and Lacey, McGee and Stephen, for presenting a terrific webinar on how to influence customer behavior using science and technology. So look for the posting of the webinar material on our website in the next couple of days. And thank you very much for joining us.